At sunset, the mountain exploded into moving earth, and La Reina watched a river of lava mud swallow the only road home. Ash fell so thick it turned breathing into work, and the swollen river below hammered boulders together like a warning drum. In 1 hour, the village became an island of wet darkness, trapped between a broken mountainside and water too violent to cross. Panic spread fast because storms had cut signals before, and every family knew helicopters sometimes passed without seeing smoke or waving arms. Marisol Kahl, a 19-year-old tile artist with ash streaked across her cheeks, stared at the ruined roofs and saw materials instead of wreckage. Where others saw shattered red tiles, she pictured reflected light. Where others saw discarded irrigation pipe, she imagined signals and structure. Where others saw old carnival mirrors from a storage shed, she saw a language bright enough to punch through fog. The first obstacle was brutal and simple. Nobody could leave, nobody could call, and darkness was arriving faster than help. The second obstacle was harder. Fear made every idea sound foolish, and seconds mattered too much for long arguments or waiting. Marisol did not promise a miracle. She pointed to what was already in front of them, assigned hands to tasks, and turned worry into specific jobs. Grandfathers dragged bamboo poles from garden edges, while teenagers snapped plastic irrigation pipe into measured lengths for a rescue line. Mothers spread broken tiles across a church floor, sorting the brightest glazed pieces from dull shards by lantern light and dusty fingertips. Children carried old carnival mirrors wrapped in festival cloth, their painted edges chipped but still sharp with flashes of silver. One crew climbed the ridge above the village, planting tile shards and mirror pieces in a chain that could catch even weak light. They fixed those fragments onto stakes and pipe frames, building a handmade beacon line that zigzagged up the slope like a broken constellation. Another crew lashed bamboo with electrical wire and braided cloth, anchoring a pulley bridge from one stubborn ceiba tree to a stone outcrop above the river. Nobody called it elegant because elegance was useless there. They called it load-bearing because flour sacks, medicine, and eventually people had to trust it. Marisol knelt in ash beside the mirrors, rubbing each surface clean with the hem of her skirt until every panel held a hard white gleam. She remembered patterns from mosaic work, where tiny pieces mattered only when arranged with ruthless intention, and she used that same discipline now. Instead of placing colors for beauty, she placed reflections for survival. Instead of designing floors, she designed visibility. On the schoolhouse wall, she mapped a blinking rescue code using lamps, mirror flashes, and covered lanterns timed by counting heartbeats. The code had to be simple enough for exhausted neighbors to repeat, but distinct enough to tell a helicopter this was organized distress. 3 quick pulses from the ridge, 2 slower lantern blinks from the schoolhouse, 1 long reflected sweep from the mirrors at the field. They practiced the sequence until old men, little girls, and farmers slick with mud could repeat it without confusion. That was the hidden strategy that changed everything. Not a heroic object, but a shared system anyone could operate under pressure. Rain kept coming, thick and dirty, turning paths into grease and soaking ropes that had never been tested with human weight. The pulley bridge groaned the first time they sent a sack of rice across, dipping low enough to spray river foam over the bamboo slats. They adjusted the angle with heavier counterweight stones. They added another line made from pipe threading and torn hammock fabric. Every failure became instruction instead of embarrassment, and that saved them more than speed ever could. An elderly mason carved notches into bamboo joints so bindings stopped sliding under rain. A market vendor used melted candle wax and cooking oil to help water bead off the lantern covers and keep the blink pattern visible. A teenage mechanic stripped copper from a dead radio, twisting it into stronger fasteners where cloth knots had begun to fray. Marisol moved between groups with mud to her knees, not commanding from safety, but solving the next visible problem every time one appeared. That mattered because courage looks believable when people can see it carrying weight. Midnight swallowed the volcano behind a curtain of black ash, and the village beacon chain stood ready along the ridge, trembling in rain. Then a gust tore down 2 mirrored stakes and scattered glazed tile pieces into a ditch like spilled teeth. For a moment, all the careful work looked fragile and ridiculous beside the mountain's power. Marisol did not waste energy mourning broken pieces. She shoved pipe ends deeper into the mud, switched the pattern spacing, and told the children to bring every shiny cooking lid they could find. Soon pot lids gleamed beside carnival mirrors, and roof tile red flashed beside silver, turning scraps into a louder signal than the original design. Improvisation stopped being a backup plan and became the village's real advantage because the disaster had no respect for perfect blueprints. Near dawn, the fog thickened so heavily the ridge disappeared 10 steps away, and hope narrowed to the size of a lantern flame. Still, they kept the rhythm. 3 quick pulses from the hill, 2 slower blinks from the schoolhouse, 1 long sweep from the field. People rotated every 15 minutes so cold hands would not lose count, and every replacement learned the sequence before taking position. That is how ordinary people outlast chaos, by breaking impossible nights into repeatable tasks small enough to hold. At first light, a distant helicopter thumped somewhere beyond the ash, invisible as a thought and easy to dismiss as imagination. Marisol climbed the highest wet rock she could reach, angled a mirror into the thin gray dawn, and sent the long sweep exactly on time. The ridge answered with 3 sharp flashes. The schoolhouse replied with 2 measured blinks. Then the helicopter changed direction. It emerged from fog like a machine dragged out of another world, nose turning toward the impossible little grammar of light on the hill. Neighbors who had spent hours swallowing panic suddenly stood taller because the thing they built with broken leftovers was now speaking to the sky. The first rescue basket did not mean the danger was over. It meant the hard part had worked, and now discipline had to carry them through the exit. Families crossed the bamboo pulley bridge in the order they had planned. Infants, elders, injured workers, then everyone else with only what could fit in arms. Nobody rushed the line because panic wastes the very seconds it claims to save. People held the beacon pattern until the last possible moment, so the helicopter could return again and again through shifting ash. By sunrise, Reina had pulled off something no one there had ever seen. Their first successful evacuation led entirely from inside the village. The mountain had taken roads, signal towers, and certainty, but it failed to take their ability to organize. When officials reached them later, they found not helpless survivors waiting for instruction, but neighbors with a working route, a signal code, and a list of needs. That difference changed the kind of help they received. Instead of being treated like a crowd in chaos, they were treated like partners who had already solved the first impossible step. Marisol's tile art was never the same after that night. Her new mosaics carried mirror shards, bamboo patterns, and thin lines of red glaze that looked like roots across danger. She said little about bravery because bravery had not felt glorious to her. It had felt like counting, tying, sorting, testing, and trying again while your hands shook. That is the lesson hidden inside Reina's survival. Do not wait for perfect tools when broken pieces can still be organized into a signal. Name the exact problem, divide the work into clear tasks, rehearse a simple plan, and let everyone own one crucial part. When fear makes the future look blank, build the next visible step with whatever is already in reach. A village trapped by lava mud, fog, and a raging river did not escape because rescue arrived first. Rescue arrived because ordinary people made themselves impossible to miss.